Discover how to achieve explosive business growth in today's episode with Jeff Hoffman. And what's so special about him is he has so many accolades. It's going to be taking us all day to say it. And he's a serial entrepreneur from Priceline.com and Ubit.com and so much more. The first question I have is, what's the secret to your success? And how can entrepreneurs achieve explosive business growth?
Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu. Mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services.
All right. So 2 different questions. Let's do the first part first, which is kind of the key to success. And it's the day you realize that it's not about you and it was never about you. It doesn't matter if it was your idea, right? You're the founder, even if it's your money. The only thing that matters is whether or not you have built an amazing team. You cannot achieve whatever you're trying to achieve by yourself. So I think for us, our secret to our success is that we always had the best people. We focused heavily on the start from building the best team. And, there's this misconception for entrepreneurs. When you start your company, it's only you. So you're doing marketing, you're doing product development, you're doing accounting and paying the bills, you're doing hiring and HR, and it's going well. So you think, I must be pretty good at all this stuff. But guess what? You're not. You're good at one thing. There is a reason that you've never hired an engineer who says, when I'm done with engineering, I'm going to do our taxes. And when I'm done with our taxes, I'm going to do all the marketing copy. That's not true. Accountants do taxes. Marketing people do marketing. Engineers do engineering. So just because you own the company doesn't mean you can do all 7 things. So the key to our success was realizing, for me, by the way, I'm a marketing guy. So I stay in my lane. I would run the marketing meetings at my own company, but I would find people smarter than me for every other job. And so we were successful because I would look around and I would say all the best people in the whole industry all work in this building. As a leader, I spent more time recruiting amazing people than I did running the company. That was the key to our success. And I think that's the secret, is that team is everything. You can't do it alone.
Thank you. How can entrepreneurs achieve explosive business growth?
So a big part of that is shrinking the net that they cast. It's almost counterintuitive. People think that the more people I market to, right? If I talk to 10,000 customers, I'll get more close rate. I'll make more sales than if I only talk to 5,000. But if you talk to 10,000 customers and you get 100 buyers, right? So that's a conversion rate. And that's what people think. Well, if I need 200 buyers and I need to drive 20,000 people to my website, right? Because it's this linear conversion rate, but they're focusing on the wrong thing. It isn't about focusing on the top line number of customers that you drove. It's the conversion rate is what matters. And that's 2 things. It's better that if you drove 200 people to your website and 150 of them bought your product than driving 10,000 people that 100 buy your product. And the reason for that is people broadcast when they should be narrowcasting. The more specifically you understand and profile your sweet spot customer, what is everything I know about the person that loves my product and is going to buy it? And I said there were 2 things. The second part of explosive growth is the customer score, whether you call it net promoter score, whatever term you use. It's better to have 100 customers that give you a 9 out of 10 than it is to have 1,000 customers that rate you a 5 out of 10. So focus on creating an unbelievable experience for less people at the beginning. And that's how you achieve that acceleration that gets you explosive growth. You're talking to the right people and you're making the experience amazing for them, which means you're putting in more time per customer than you'll be able to do later. but then you'll have a high conversion rate and really happy customers. That's what goes viral, not the fact that 10,000 people visited you and only 100 bought. What goes viral is 200 people went there, 150 fell in love with you, and they can't stop talking about you. Focus on your conversion rate and focus on your customer satisfaction, not just top line traffic.
Thank you. So how can entrepreneurs narrowcast and
that's a great question. Lily, narrowcasting is about spending. It's interesting because I used to tell people all the time. Well, I'm going to tell you how I learned this real quick. I was spending the afternoon with this older gentleman who was in retail. I had the whole day with him, and I was trying to learn from him. And he had built a company that was sort of counterintuitive. All the experts, air quotes around experts, said it was a stupid idea and it'll never work. And he did it anyway. So we're sitting at lunch this day, and I asked this gentleman, if all the experts said your idea was no good, how did you know it was going to work? And he said, because I didn't ask the experts, I asked the farmers. And I said, wait, what? Because everybody shops at your store now. And he said, right, but I achieved acceleration and growth by figuring out who the core customer was early on, and they were farmers. And I said, how did you do that? And this man said to me, every Friday, I would change clothes, put on overalls and work boots like a farmer. He said, I even bought a John Deere hat. And he said, I would leave the office and I would go to the diner where the farmers were, and I'd spend the whole day just talking to farmers. And he said, that's how I learned how to design a product that they would all buy. Well, the cool part of the story, Lily, is that man was Sam Walton. And I asked him, Walmart everybody said you can't build big box retail in small town America. And he said, right, that was all the Wall Street people. But I asked the farmers what they needed from me. So he was the first big box retailer in small town America because he basically let the farmers design it. How did he do that? By spending time with farmers. So I took that lesson every other Friday, and I'm advising this to everybody listening. Every other Friday, I would change clothes, leave the office, and I would go hang out where the customers were. We went to grocery stores many times and discount stores like Walmart to talk to moms that were planning vacations. And they didn't know they don't know I'm a CEO. They don't know I run a company. I'm just dressed like them, and I'm out of my office in the customer's life. So my advice is spend a day in the life of your customer, spend more time out of your office, and you will get much more focused on delivering the product your customer wants, and then your growth will accelerate. Again, that's how we achieve that explosive growth, by really intimately getting to know our customers.
Thank you. How can you find out where your customers are?
So you do have to test markets. Another good question. Meaning at the beginning, I can tell you early on, for example, at Priceline, the discussion in the building was, businesses, small business owners should use Priceline, and families should use Priceline, and college students should use Priceline. That's what I was talking about, broadcasting. But the narrowcasting happens when you test each of these markets. And here's what happens. When Priceline started, as an example, you didn't know what hotel you were staying in, right? You made an offer on a hotel room in a city, and we picked the hotel. And you couldn't get your frequent flyer, your frequent, stay mile. So when we sampled the business market, business people said, well, I want my points. And we said, well, we can't give them to you. So they were reluctant to buy. Families said, well, I need to know exactly what hotel it is and where it is so I can plot out the trip. And we said, well, we don't tell you that until after you've paid. College students said, I don't give a crap what hotel it is or where, I just want to go to spring break. So the college student was easy to convince. They would whip out their credit card and pay for their hotel without any argument. The families had an argument. The businesses had an argument. So when you test a market, what you do is you come back and say, we should launch in the college market, and we should take over that market first. And then you know what happens? The college kid tells their parents they're at spring break. I'm using this as an example. And the parents say, I didn't give you any money. How'd you afford a hotel? and they say, oh, it's this new thing called Priceline. And then the parents say, well, why aren't we using this for our family vacation? Then when they're on their vacation, the one of them that owns a business is saying, well, wait a minute, how could we afford the Hyatt? Well, we got this great deal on Priceline. And they're saying, well, why am I not using this at my business? So when we try to convince them, they had an argument. But when it comes from within, so you test markets and you find out which market is the easiest to close a sale, and then you start there and grow outward from there.
Thank you. What's a good way for entrepreneurs to get their first 100 customers? And the reason I ask this is that felt to me like the hardest thing, because once you have your first 100, then you have your case studies, you have your customer experience, you have sales, and also you've gone through that period of perhaps not making that much money because you've offered some some memberships or some product or some service to your initial customers at cost or even lower, just to get them in the door. So what would you say to that? So
the first step that I always tell people is look for friendlies. What I mean by that is it's so much easier when it's someone you know. If it's a B2B, here's an example. In the B2B side, I was trying early on, this was a different product. This was when we were building the airport check-in kiosks. But I was going through all my contacts to see, do I know anybody that works in an airport? So going to a friendly is calling a friend and say, hey, man, could you help me out? Could you just try the product? A complete stranger that works for an airline that I've never met is way harder to convince than a friend of yours. Likewise with consumers. I remember when I was talking to the guy that created Pandora, the music app. He was telling me that he gave it to 20 of his friends and said, could you just try this for me and tell me what you think? And he said within 2 weeks, there were 5,000 registered users on his server. And he said, I only gave it to 20 people. And they said, yeah, but we all loved it. So we told all our friends. So finding friends, that friendly people. And if you don't have any friends that are either work, in my case, work for an airline or travelers, because we need to do both sides, then ask your friends if they have friends. So look for a friendly connection that you can call and say, could you just do me a favor? Could you just try this and tell me what you think? And if they like it, they have the credibility you don't because they work for an airline. So now it's an airline saying, this product's really cool. We like it, and it spreads out from there. But always go through your entire network and your friends' networks to try to find friendly people that will try the product first. Because if it doesn't work, they're not going to go on social media and say, this is horrible. They're going to call you and say, Lily, as a friend, I got to give you some advice, right? That's why you want to start with friendlies. They'll do more and they'll protect you.
Thank you. How do you cope with the initial costs that you have to cope with when you have your first 100 customers, whereby perhaps you have to gift them some trial memberships or some trial product, and you don't charge for it, and also you have the cost of delivering that, especially for high-end goods and products and services where the cost is considerably higher.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. You are going to have cost no matter what for the first people. And you're also right that I always tell people you need reference customers. What I mean by that is if you're going to give people the product free, which you probably are at the beginning, to get them to use it, you need to ask for something in return. So for anybody listening now, it's good to, you can't, in the first 100 customers, when you had no one that's used it, it's hard to get anybody to pay. So Lily's right, you're going to give it away free. But when you do, get something back for it. And the thing you want back is a reference. I'm going to give you the product free, but if you like it, I don't want you to lie. If you like it, I want you to do a testimonial video for me, right? Shoot a little video that said, oh my God, I love this product. So make sure you're asking for a reference in exchange for giving it away free. And if they don't like it, what you're getting back is feedback so you can fix it. You are correct that there's cost and you might not have the money, but that's also the best way to get your first investors is not by you. It's one thing if I'm calling an investor saying, I swear this is a great product, everybody's going to love it, you'll see. That's one way. The other way is if Lily is a customer, and even though I gave it to free, Lily said, oh my God, this is the best product I've ever used. I'm telling all my friends about it. So what you want to show investors is customer testimonials, not you waving your hands around saying it's great. So give whatever you can afford to give away free. Get videos of those people saying they love it. And when you go to an investor and say, look, I want to give it to 20 more people, but I don't have the money, it's a lot easier to raise that money when you're showing them customers that are raving about your product.
Thank you. If entrepreneurs don't want to use investors and don't want to use money from family, where else do you recommend they could go to in order to fund the delivery of the first 100 purchases from customers?
So interesting you asked that, Lily, because when I ask people, what are the sources of funding? They write down investors, venture capitalists, private equity, friends and family, banks. They write all that down. You know what people never write down as a source of investment, of funding? Customers, revenue, sell something. And so that's the answer to your question. The first thing you should be doing before you ask outsiders for their money is seeing if you can get it out of customers. So I'm going to tell you the example. When we were doing these check-in kiosks at the airports, when I first went to some airlines and said, would you like to buy a kiosk so people won't have to stand in line anymore? They didn't exist then. Airlines said to me, sure, when the kiosk is ready, bring me one, right? I'll buy one when you have them ready. I'm trying to raise funding to build kiosks. And they're saying, as soon as you have a kiosk, but I don't have the money to build the kiosk, so I'm stuck. They'll buy it as soon as I have it. I don't have money to build it. So my options are go out, talk to investors. But in your example, I don't want investment money. So you know what I did? I went back to these people and said, you sure you don't want to place an order? And they said, we'll place an order when the kiosks are ready. And this is what I said. I said, okay, but you might be farther down the list. Now, to use a sports term, I'm trash talking a little, right? I'm saying this to see what their response is. And they said, what do you mean by that? And I said, I think, did not lie. I said, I think the other airline, your biggest competitor, is going to put down a deposit instead of waiting till the product's ready. So if they give me a deposit, they'll get the first delivery and you'll get a delivery when I can get to you. And they said, well, we don't want to be last on the delivery list. And I said, well, then you can put down a deposit right now. And so they said, we want to put down a deposit. And then the other airline said, wait, we both made a deposit. Who's getting it first? I said, well, whoever puts down the biggest deposit. And they said, well, then we want to give you more money. And so all these airlines started saying, we want to buy a position on the delivery list when the product's ready. So take our money. So I was raising money from customers before I could sell the product by taking deposits because they wanted to get first on the delivery list. There are ways, what I want you to do if you're listening is think about how can I get some money out of my customers before I get it out of investors?
Thank you. What could be possible to offer them in terms of using this exact strategy you talked about?
Yeah, well, it depends. It's hard for me to answer that because it would depend on what your product is, right? You're offering them a period of time free when the product comes out. You're offering them earlier delivery. You're offering them better support than the people that buy it later. Anything, you have to really think creatively. What could you offer based on what kind of product you have? What could you offer the people that give you money up front, that give you a deposit? It has to be something special. Like I said, they get they get more hours of training time. They get extra hours of service time. They get the phone number to the gold service desk. I'm making that up, but think creatively and find things you can do for them that make people say, oh, I want that. And then you say, okay, we just need to give me some money now, not later.
Thank you. What systems would you recommend entrepreneurs leverage in order to build explosive business growth?
Well, so it's not specific systems, but it's systematizing in general. So again, another great question that you're asking, because in order to scale, your business has to be designed for scale. And a business where the people that work for you do what they do every day, and now you want to take on twice the number of customers, and that person says, well, wait, there's only so many hours in the day. I can only install, let's say it's installation. In fact, I'll give you a real example. And you have installers that are just delivering and installing your product, whatever that means for your product. Just an example. And you say we're going to increase sales and bring on more customers. And your installer says there's only 7 days in a week. I can only install so many a week. You can't sell more because I can't install them. So we had that situation. So the question of systems is creating systems, i.e. automation, to do as many things as your people are doing. So I actually, in this case, asked my installers, what is it you do when you go to a customer? Well, first I download the software onto their server. Then I go in and I enter all their specific info. And then we import, I'm making this up, right? Then we import their HR file that has all their employees in it. I wrote down all the steps. And then I went back to my tech guys and I said, build a process that does this all automatically. So when a new customer came on, we said, there are two options. You can pay extra and our installers will fly out and visit you. That's the way we used to do it. But now we charge extra. Or you can click here. If you click here, our installation software auto downloads to your server. It auto imports your HR files. It gives you a screen to set the settings that you want, and no humans are involved. We created a system for customers to register and install all by themselves. The more things you systematize, so look at everything you're doing and saying, does that really need a person to do it? Or could we build a system that does that so that we can do it much faster and grow much faster? That's how we scaled, is because we tried to get people out of as much of the loop as possible.
Thank you. What marketing systems would you implement in order to make the business as scalable as possible?
Again, in terms of actual products in the market, I've been retired from it too long. So I'm not the right one to answer the best third-party products that are out there today. But there's a lot of technology today for customizing and personalizing your marketing to that specific customer. So make sure that you're Googling and using the skills that customize and personalize your marketing material so that when a customer receives it, they feel like that was a unique, if let's say you're using email marketing, the email should look like it was a unique custom email that you sent only to me, right? Because it knows something about me and it talks to me like it knows me. There are tools for personalization of marketing. When something feels like dear resident, if you get if you get a mail that says dear resident, dear customer, you're already deleting it. You'll never read that. If I got a piece of mail that said, hey, Jeff, I know that you really like blank, and I'm aware that in the past you worked at this company, whatever. There's technology that collects info and personalizes all your marketing materials so the customer believes that you're really interested in them. I highly recommend that you look at and use those products. They didn't even exist when I was doing this years ago.
Thank you. What other foundational elements would you have entrepreneurs set up before they try to scale?
So I'll give you a couple of them. One of them, by the way, is onboarding. Companies are so bad. When you start to scale, you're growing and suddenly you need to add more people. But your process of bringing people on quickly, it interrupts your other employees because there's like, Jeff, you need to go train Lily. And I was like, oh my God, I'm completely on overload. I don't have time to train the new girl. So did you automate that? Could you build onboarding tools? Could you have just shot videos of me explaining how to do my job so I don't have to keep doing it? I don't have to meet with Lily in person. She can just watch the Jeff training videos. Are you thinking of every way to speed up onboarding so that you can scale by adding people quickly and getting them up to speed, by capturing the best practices of your best people. Same thing with account management. But one of the biggest ones, by the way, is a foundational system you need to build is the feedback loop from account management and customer service to product development. So account management, customer service, the call center, those people are talking to customers. And the customers are all complaining about one piece of your product. But your product developers are in a different department entirely. They don't talk to customers. They're internal all day. So what is your feedback loop? And so what we built was we built technology to collect that information and feed it back to product development. Not super complicated. There's tools for that. So as you, as a customer service or account manager, are talking to customers, we're picking out those key words of what they don't like and what they want fixed. And you can even do word clouds, right? That you send back to your product developers and like, oh my God, this word's giant. No one likes this. We need to fix it. So that's foundational. Do you have a connection between the input you get from customers and what you feed back to your product developers and then to your marketing team so that you're growing with the customer and you're listening to their input? Many companies don't, and they wonder why their business isn't growing. It's because there's a thing about your company or your product that no one likes, but you never fix it because you never fed that back to the people that are designing your products.
Thank you. Tell us about some case studies of some entrepreneurs or some businesses that you have worked with or supported, and one change that perhaps you suggested to them as an idea that they implemented, and how did that work out in terms of explosive business growth?
Sure. So one of the ones, well, here's a big one, and it's something that that this is just my term that I call the second slide customer, but I'll explain it. In one of my companies, as a CEO, I told one of my salespeople, I want to go with you on your sales calls. So he had 2 sales calls that day. So we went to the first one, and his sales pitch was a PowerPoint that had 20 slides. And on the first one, he made it through all 20 slides, and the customer asked questions and took notes and nodded. And at the end, the customer said, looks good. He said, I'll get back to you. And we got in the car, and my sales guy said, that was a good sales call. And I didn't say anything. We got to the second sales pitch. And on the second slide, he had 20 slides. On the second slide, this woman said, oh my God, where have you been all my life? I'm in. And my salesperson said, okay, but I still have 18 more. And I was like, dude, what part of stop talking? She said, yes. You don't need to show her 20 slides. She said yes in the second slide. So we got in the car, and I said, you have a new job description. And he said, what? And I said, your job is to find all the second slide customers out there. Quit. And you know what he said? He said what salespeople said. He said, just give me a few more weeks with the 20 slide guy. And I was like, dude, in 3 more weeks, you could sell 10 second slide customers. They already want the product instead of you talking them into wanting the product. Your job is to find the people that already want it. The answer is, the question is, how do you do that? And the answer is, you profile. So here's what I tell people to do. If anybody's listening that has a company, ask your salespeople, or yourself if you're selling, to write down the names of any second slide sales you've ever had. Anytime you went in to sell and someone said, okay, I already like it. Here's my credit card. What's the easiest sale you ever made? Wrote down those people's names. Then ask customer service. Are there customers out there that just freaking love us? Who loves our company? You write down those names. Then you take the names of the second slide sales, the easiest sale you've ever closed, and the customers that love you the most, and you profile those people. What's similar about them? So you're trying to get better at identifying, and I'll give you one more example, then I'll stop on this one. We started to notice, so this was a B2B product. We started to notice that, and it doesn't matter why, Lily, it just matters what, that all of the people that said yes on the second slide had, interestingly enough, had been at their job 5 or 6 years. These are corporate. We're selling to corporate people on this example. And I was like, but that's interesting. I wonder why. It turns out that people that have only been there 1 or 2 years are too new to take a risk on a new vendor. So they're afraid to take a risk. I'm too new. So they're never going to say yes. People that have been there 20 years don't care about their job anymore. So they don't even care. So they're not going to take a risk. They'll just protect their job. But at the 5 year mark, we notice people say, okay, I've been here 5 years. I got to make my mark. I got to establish myself. So I'm willing to take a risk on a new vendor because I'll be the person that discovered the new vendor. I'll be the person that tried a new solution and I can make a name for myself. So guess what we started doing? Now we're talking to potential customers. So how long have you been at your job? Oh, this is the end of my first year. We're like, let's not even waste our time pitching him. He's not going to say yes. And somebody would say, I've been here 22 years. We're like, she probably doesn't even care. Let's not waste our time. But if somebody said, I just finished my 5th year, I was like, go right over there because this person is likely to say yes. So what you're doing is you're building a profile of the people that were easy to sell so that you can identify them quickly next time. That's one of the things that I taught. And I've had multiple companies that called me up all excited. Jeff. I said, what? And they said, we figured out how to find our second slide customer. And the close rate, our sales close rate is quadruple. We're selling way faster than ever because we're not wasting time pitching people that are never going to say yes. And we're really good at finding people that are probably going to say yes. So you asked me for, an example. That's what they did. They implemented that and it worked big time.
Thank you. What's a good way to optimize the sales process in the way that, let's say you have a call with an interested customer, you're selling something super high ticket, they ask you to send a PDF or a proposal of some sort, and then crickets happen, nothing happens. What's a good way to kind of optimize this process to actually make it work for both parties?
Sure. So this is what I would do. And I did this one time when I was frustrated with somebody that a potential customer that I just couldn't get excited. I would visit him and he would say, yeah, I'll get back to you. And I'd be like, you told me that last time and nothing happened. So I made basically two pictures. One was your life before me and the other one was your life with me, your life after me. And I showed him, here's your life before me. Here's how much you're spending. Here's what return you're getting. Here's what your business looks like now. And then I made a slide that said, here's your business after me. This is 1 year after you sign a deal with me. This is what your business looked like. And I showed it to the two before and after picture. And he stared at them both and he picked up the after and he said, wait a minute, I could look like this, my business, my results, my numbers. And I said, yes. And he said, okay, it broke the logjam. He said, I want to sign up because here's why. The reason they're super busy doing their job. They're worried about, if it's business to business, they're worried about their boss and their job and their performance and the numbers that they get measured on. If it's a consumer, they're just worried about their life and their time and their money. So this person is too busy worrying about themselves. You're walking in and saying, do this for me. I need you to buy my product, right? That's about you. They're worried about them. So the way you close that is stop telling them what you want. I want you to buy my product, right? They're like, you know what, dude, I have my own problems. I know you need to hit your sales quota. I got my problems. My boss is breathing down my neck, or my family can't afford this vacation and we're stressed. Whatever it is, what you need to do is flip the script and come in talking about their life. Walk in and say, I understand that at your company, you get measured on these 3 numbers. And you say, I could double those numbers for you and make you a hero in the company. And they would say, how? Then you say, by you using my product. But start with showing them what their life would look like if they were doing business with you. That would be the same thing on the consumer side. I know you're stressed about this. Check this out. What if I could get you everything you needed for 40% less than you thought it was going to cost? Now you're talking about them, not you. And they're saying, whoa, wait a minute, that's significant to me. So that's the answer to your question, is I always did a your life without me and your life with me, two diagrams, and I would say, you choose, which one do you want? But it was about them, not about me.
Thank you. When you have a lot of different offers that could all suit your potential high ticket client, what would you do? Because let's say there's so many different things that could potentially help them, and they could want all of them. But if you offer them all of them, they could say most likely nothing to any of them.
Yeah, so I'm not a fan of having a lot of different product offerings. So for years, and this is something I teach explosive growth workshops. One of the things I teach people is I tell them you need to become the best at one thing. And I will give you examples. Early on, when the internet first started, a lot of us used to talk to each other because the internet was new and there weren't that many of us. And I remember a conversation I had with Jeff Bezos. And here's what people forget. For almost 7 years, you could only buy books from Amazon and nothing else. And so the reason that Amazon grew was because they didn't do what you said. They didn't have 7 products to offer. What Bezos said to me is, he said, Amazon one day will be the marketplace of everything. And he said, but in order for me to achieve growth, I need to be the best damn bookseller on the planet. And I don't know if you remember Tony Hsieh from Zappos. Tony said to me, my goal right now is to be the best darn shoe seller on the planet. Every company that I looked at that achieved real explosive growth did not offer their customers 7 products. They offered them 1. You could buy a book from Amazon. Even Phil Knight at Nike, he didn't have sweats and exercise gear. He had tennis shoes. You could buy a tennis shoe from Nike. You could buy a book from Amazon. All of the companies that achieved massive growth did not have 7 things. They had their best product. So the advice I always, by the way, for us in travel, when we started out, we talked about selling cruises, selling vacations. But the company, which most people now know it today as Booking.com, the company today I think sales are $20 billion a year, and the company basically has 1 product. 90-something% of all the revenue comes from hotel rooms. So the belief that you need to offer your customer everything, we can't book your cruise, we can't sell you luggage, we can't give you travel insurance, we just want to sell you a hotel room. Be the best at something. That's how you achieve that growth, when you're known as the best at something. Bezos had the discipline to sell nothing but books for almost 7 years until he became recognized as an amazing company before he sold anything else.
That's so interesting. Thank you. Tell us where entrepreneurs can find you.
Sure. So I'm most active on LinkedIn. My Instagram is Speaker Jeff Hoffman. And my X is just Speaker Jeff. I do have a website, jeffhoffman.com. So those are the places that I am. I also do a lot of philanthropic work, and I have a youth foundation called World Youth Horizons. That's at worldyouthhorizons.com. But I love hearing feedback, and I love hearing founders' stories of either their struggles or their triumphs, because that's how I learn. And Lily, I really appreciate you taking the time to have me today.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.